Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you a awesome build that I have built, basically solely designed around the collective obligation. This is the new raid exotic, so this is from Valve the Disciple. You can only get this from the final boss. It is a pretty low chance to get it, but with every clear that you complete, where you didn't get it, you have a higher chance of getting it, right? So, but it has to be looted runs. You can't just run it endlessly for the week and expect to get it. You only get 3 chances per week, so it's just like all the other RNG drop raid exotics. Now, for the perks, we have Umbral Sustenance, which is when you activate Devour, you get a Void Overshield, or you become invisible, the gun automatically reloads. And this does work with the subsequent activation of Devour. So let's say I activate Devour for the first time, the gun reloads. Any kill that I get, even with the gun, actually it's just any source, as long as I have Devour, it just auto reloads. So I can essentially have an infinite mag as long as I'm killing enemies and keeping Devour up, which is awesome. That's really cool. Now, for the main actual exotic perk, we have Void Leech, which is basically the weapon steals debuffs from enemies that are affected by them. So, Suppression, Weakening, and Volatile. Obviously, on a Warlock, all 3 of these are very, very easy to get and do. So this weapon is stellar with the build that I've got because I'm on a Warlock. So, yeah. But this is going to be awesome. We're going to be getting all of these very, very easily. Actually, you can get all 3 of these with just a grenade alone. That's how insane this is. So, yeah. This is going to be very easy to do, and I'm going to be showing you how we're doing it. So, getting into the subclass, your super is irrelevant, so you don't need to care about that. I just prefer using Nova Warp, so I'm just using that. But we will need a suppression nade. You will have to use suppression nade if you want to make full use of this build. It's really what... well, I mean, there's no other way to suppress an enemy, right? With a Warlock, besides putting on a suppression nade, so that's what we're going to be using. And then, obviously, on melee as well activates Volatile, so we already have Suppression and Volatile on demand, which is great. Now, I do recommend having triple 100 in Recurve, Dis, and Strength. The reason for this is that you want all of your abilities to come back as fast as possible, because we're going to be using all of them to get our debuffs. Having high Recurve on a Warlock decreases the Rift cooldown, Dis and Strength, obviously, for Grenade and Melee. Now, we do have stat boosts in here, a lot of them actually, so you should be able to get this pretty easily. It's very easy to get like quads as well on Void 3.0, so if you can't get triples, then I don't know what you're doing. There's lots of ways of getting triple with these stat boosts. But anyway, regardless, as long as you have decent stats, this build will work just fine. Now, for the aspects, you want Feed the Void for Devour, of course, because as I mentioned earlier, the gun auto-reloads on every Devour proc, so we want that. And then we have Child of the Old Gods because it weakens enemies, and it also gives you ability energy, which is great. So, yeah, obviously we want this for the weakening side. We do have another source of weakening, regardless of this, same with Volatile. So you can actually get away with not using this if you really don't want to. But Child of the Old Gods is just a super, super easy way to weaken enemies, so I highly recommend using this. And that's that. So for the fragments, we have Echo of Instability, which is defeating enemies with grenades, gives us volatile rounds for our void weapons. Now this weapon is obviously void, so we already have 2 ways of getting volatile, a way to suppress and a way to weaken, just through these abilities alone, so that's great. And now we can have volatile with the gun itself, so you know, it's self-proccing its own debuff, and its own perk, which is great. Then I have Finisher Final Blows grant invisibility. Now I am using this for the stats. I don't actually have to use this for the stats, it's just with the gear slots that I wanted, so Artifice and Vow the Disciple. I do have to use this because I want triple 100s. I can get triple 100s without any of these in here, but with the specific gear that I'm using, I wanted this. You should use this anyway, because remember, invisibility does reload the weapon, and having invis is just a nice way to get out of situations you don't want to be in. you get in a tight spot in a GM or something, you could just finisher an enemy, make some special with special ammo finisher or something, I don't know, and go invis and get out of there. Now, next up we have void debuffs, or void buffs applied to myself, so invisibility, overshield, and devour have increased duration. This is phenomenal. Devour lasts 15 seconds, and invis should last around 11 seconds, I think, on Warlock. Maybe 7, I'm not sure, it's 7 or 11, so either one of those. I mostly have this on for the Devour. You can get away with not using this as well, but I do have this for the Devour so that I don't need to worry about ever losing Devour, and it means I'll always have a grenade, so, you know, because Devour gives you grenade energy, so, yeah. Then we have Echo of Domineering, which is after suppressing a target, you gain increased mobility. That part's irrelevant. However, we have the reload here as well. Now, technically, you don't really need this because the gun auto-reloads anyway, but this is more so for the other things because you can easily just quickly throw a grenade and auto-reload your rocket launcher, auto-reload your fusion rifle in this case, that's what I'm using, and make use of that. Technically, I'm just doing this for stats, but we are using suppression nades, and we are suppressing enemies constantly because that's the point. So, it's just a nice little buff. Also, there is literally nothing else in here to use. I will be real. There is nothing else that I could make use of here that's actually, like, really worth it. So, yeah, this is great. Now, onto the exotic of the day. We will be using Eye of Another World, purely for ability cooldowns. This will bring this to tier 11, this will bring this to tier 11, and this will bring this to tier 11. I'm not sure the exact timings because they have obviously changed a lot of things since people timed them originally. This one should be around 29 seconds, 28 seconds. This one should be around the mid-30s mark. So it's like a good solid 10 seconds cut off these, give or take. So yeah, that's pretty nice. It does bump them to tier 11. It does work after tier 10. 100%. So I highly recommend using Eye of Another World. It is a phenomenal exotic, and it will be perfect for this build because it just means you get your abilities back faster, and we need those to buff the weapon. Now, for actual mods, we're going to start off with our Bond mod here because I am using Suppressive Darkness, which is when I suppress an enemy, it also weakens them. This is perfect synergy with what we've got going on here because now we can get two ways to Volatile. We've got 2 ways to weaken, and we have our suppression grenade, which is going to weaken and Volatile. So yeah, just from a grenade alone, you can get all 3 buffs here, which is perfect. Everything else is just an added bonus at that point, right? And it just means you're going to do more damage with your other guns and all your abilities and stuff. So it's great. Moving on, I have Radiant Light for stats. You don't have to use this. You can have whatever you want in there. I just want it for stats because I like having triple 100 and I like having high stats. Then I have Font of Might, which is only going to buff the collective in this case. I'm not using any other void weapons, but you can use other void weapons if you want. You don't have to use these. It's just the collective that I would recommend using. You don't need this, you don't need this. You can have whatever you want. Font of Might is going to buff your heavy. That's great. If you have an Osmosis weapon up here, that's great. Regardless, I'm just using Font of Might because it just makes the gun more consistent. It makes it more fun in PvE, so yeah. Then I have Elemental Armaments to actually make wells, which is going to activate Font of Might, of course. And I have Volatile Flow, just for more volatile rounds. It means that picking up a Void Well gives the gun volatile rounds for 16 seconds instead of 9, and it means that I can get the buffs easier and just shred, go on a rampage. Basically, this whole build is around getting those debuffs off and buffing the gun. And we have definitely done that. We've got our abilities up constantly. We've got so many ways to activate the debuffs. And it's great. The build is awesome. It feels great. It really brings out Void 3.0. You're really making use of everything Void 3.0 has, except from Void Overshields, because I'm pretty sure Warlocks cannot get that whatsoever. We do still have our Rift, which will give us an Overshield, so in theory you're still getting everything that Void 3.0 has in this build, just not quite, right? But yeah, that's pretty much the build. That's all I really have to show. I will now just move on to gameplay, just showing off how everything works. And let me know what you think. I think it's pretty awesome. I'm making use of everything, which is kind of the goal. And the gun is great. The gun feels great with this build, so it's doing something right. But yeah, anyway, let me know what you think, and see you in the next one. Oh, actually, before I end this, as for the middle mods, you know, all this stuff, none of that matters. You can use whatever you want. Just match it to your weapon, maybe get some resistances in there, you know, maybe other ways to get your abilities back faster. You see I have impact induction here. Maybe an orb mod if you like collecting orbs for faster supers. I don't know. Use what you want. But anyway, thanks for watching, and adios. Enjoy the gameplay. Alright, so to show you how this weapon works, we're going to use our abilities and such to get our debuffs. So we've got weaken here. We're going to weaken these enemies, and then we're going to hit them. And you can see now I have a little circle on the sight there. That means I've got weaken stored. So now if I... Okay. So now if I kill an enemy here... Okay, never mind. Alright, we got Suppression now, so you can see I have a second one. Now we have Suppression. So now I just need to kill enough enemies to get Volatile. Which we will do here in a second. Any time now. There we go. Now we have Volatile. We have all three of the circles charged, and now the big one's ready because, you know, we actually have all three of them there. And we can activate the gun. And all three debuffs will be fired from the weapon that we got. So, Volatile, Suppression, and Weaken. It doesn't really do crazy damage because, you know, it's only a primary. But it is pretty fun on minors, especially with the 40% buff that exotic weapons got. Exotic primaries and trace rifles got. But yeah, that's basically the concept of the gun. And obviously with the build, you'll be getting grenades, your melee back, and your rift back very, very quickly. So you can get all three of these buffs instantly. You can see here, I got all three of them just like that. And yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And then you just go crazy with the gun, because why not? It's a fun gun. It may not be very strong against bosses, because, you know, it's a primary. It doesn't really matter, that's not what it's for. But it's fun. It's fun. And obviously with Devour, the gun just keeps reloading. I don't actually need to reload it, despite me just instinctively reloading. And yeah, the build is great. Works wonders. You always have your abilities. The gun is always charged. It's always ready to go. So yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for watching.